Hello and welcome to episode 105 of Communicast, the podcast dedicated to enhancing communication skills. I'm your host, Scott D'Amico, president of Communispond. Today I'm joined by Amy Armstrong, a conflict resolution coach and founder of the Center for Family Resolution. In this episode, Amy shares how she went from chronic people pleaser to courageous truth teller and how you can too. We talk about the power of yes energy, how to set boundaries without being brutal, and the surprising difference between just using communication skills and truly embodying them. This is a rich conversation filled with practical tips, personal insight, and a message we all need. You can speak up and still be kind. Let's dive in. Amy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I am really looking forward to our conversation. Before we get into it, if you can, just please tell the listeners a little bit about you, your background, and the great work that you're doing today.
Oh, I'm happy to do that. I can only imagine that every listener out there has been in some type of tense conflict, whether it's recent or at some point, whether it's with a coworker or a boss that you're just afraid to speak up to, or even someone at home. And I'm the person that meets folks in that tense moment and helps redefine how people show up in conflict. And I had such a powerful experience once I started my conflict resolution business that I ended up training coaches how to work with folks in really explosive situations. So conflict and conversation, tough rooms, that is where I meet you.
I love that phrase, how you show up in conflict. And so
Mhm.
what got you into this line of work?
Oh, wow. My life, I did it all wrong. I was even told by my own mother when I was a girl that I was being fake. And I did not know what she meant when she would just say, be yourself. I literally thought you were supposed to act a certain way. And so I grew up acting because I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to upset anyone. I was the youngest of four in my family, and there was a lot of drama going on. And I just took it upon myself to keep the peace, and it backfired on me completely. And so, really, my biggest teacher has been my younger self who did it all wrong, who was too afraid to just simply tell the truth. And once I got into my mid 40s, I started trying it out little by little. And I now call myself a courageous truth teller. I am not afraid anymore. And my life has gotten so much more peaceful by actually telling the raw, honest truth. And I'd love to share that key or the secret to what made the
Mhm.
difference for me. Is this the right time to do that?
I think so, because I think a lot of times when people hear that you're the truth teller or people
Yeah.
that are very,
Yeah.
quote, brutally honest, sometimes they think that, okay, maybe that leads to more conflict and more tension. So what's the secret sauce here to kind of bring
But
more peace and tranquility?
well, look at me, right? I'm a nice person, right? I love being kind. I love being generous. I love taking care of people. I like being really good to people. And so what I learned the hard way was how to create a vibe where I could set foolproof boundaries. I did not have to lose that kind side of myself. And so I have a fun little name for it. I call it yes energy, where we can always say what we have to say in terms of what we do want, not what we don't want. And of course, we're never telling anyone else what to do. So I've really coined this process of how we can set boundaries and be very truthful without the brutal. So it is not brutally honest. It's not harsh. It's never critical. But it simply sounds like, let's say someone wants to get into a conversation, something in the news, whether it's something political or something controversial, or even a big issue that just feels like, oh no, I don't want to go there. This is not a 10-second comment, right? It's going to lead to some type of completely rocking the boat and upsetting the apple cart or all the sayings we have for it. And so to be able to be completely honest and have the courage to say, oh gosh, that's something I could definitely talk about over dinner, says, no, I'm not having that conversation right now. But it says it more in what we would be willing to do. And if we're not willing to have that conversation at all, we can just say, that doesn't sound like me. That's just not a conversation that I would feel good talking about. I'd love to tell you, about the new restaurant I went to last night, or I'd love to hear how that event went last weekend for you. I mean, I literally just said, no, I'm not talking about that without any indication that I feel critical or judgmental or even negative about it in any way.
It's such I think, a subtle shift, but at the same time, a very big difference, I think, in the outcome, how the
Yeah.
other person may perceive it. And as you mentioned, it's not necessarily your place to tell other people what they're going to talk about. But when it comes to me, it's like, I would love to talk about that along X, Y, and Z boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not at the office or over dinner or whatever the situation may be. So it's a very small distinction. It's fascinating to think about it from that perspective. And one of the things that you touched on earlier was when you're talking about, I think, when you were younger and how your mom would talk about like being fake. And authenticity is something that we talk a lot about when it comes to communication and effective communicators and really kind of being the best communicator that you can.
Mhm.
So I think ultimately we're going to circle back to this conversation around the yes energy. But as you think about that, with this idea of authenticity, and we're really trying to break through potentially contentious and volatile situations.
Mhm.
For me, it's hallmark of a great communicator. So when you hear that somebody is a great communicator or have very strong communication skills, I guess what's the image that conjures up for you?
I actually use exactly what you're saying, authenticity as the center of everything. Because so many people, when they want to be a great communicator, are trying to use outward skills that we all know, how to pause and how to nod your head and how to wait your turn and how to use kind of some of the short phrases that let people know we're thinking about what we're saying. But honestly, what it tells me is that they are actually embodying the skills. They're not just skills that we know how to pull out of our toolkit and turn on for the sake of appearing to be a good listener. We're actually listening, like it's real. We're actually considering what the person said, whether we agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. We're actually listening for what it means to them rather than for what it means to us.
That's a neat way to look at it, where the difference between just using the skills versus truly embodying the skills. And to me, that is authenticity, right? If you think about, and I see this in the media a lot, maybe if you see of like celebrities where they're on the red carpet and they have the big smile on and they look happy and engaged. And then as soon as the cameras go off, what happens? The smile goes away. They look miserable, right? They're not being maybe true and authentic. They
Right,
are using those
right.
skills for that particular scenario because they feel it's going to serve them well versus really they're happy,
And
they're
it
engaged,
might.
they're excited to be there.
Yeah.
So it's a nice way to look at it.
Right. Well, one thing I teach in my coach training program is we call it level one, level two, or level three listening. And that level one listening can still look like listening, but the listener is actually just integrating what's being said in terms of the impact on the listener. Then we get to move into level two or three listening, where we're really, our curiosity is no longer about what does this mean to me, but I'm curious about what's really happening with this person and what else is happening here that we can tap into to not only look like we're connecting, but so that person really feels a heart space, really feels in their body, really feels that there's a connection.
I want to talk about this listening a little bit more because
Mhm.
it's something that comes up often. It's a very critical skill for,
Mhm.
quite honestly, anyone, whether it's at home or at work, to really have truly that effective listening and beyond, as you mentioned, just the level one listening where maybe you're just waiting for them to stop talking so you can respond.
Mhm.
You're only concerned about it from your own perspective. So, how do you move people
Yeah.
from level one listening to level two? What are some strategies, either that if you're coaching somebody or just for self-awareness, right? If people that are listening to this and they realize, you know what, gosh, that's me. When somebody's talking, I'm just really thinking about the impact on me. I just want to respond and tell them my side of it. But how do I kind of move, right? Up, move to
Right.
that next level.
I love this question because once you experience level two listening, you know what it is. So, for example, if someone's telling me about their trip and I am curious, oh, how long did it take you to get there? And, was this more of a beach vacation or a city vacation? Those are things that I might be curious about. But moving into the question of what did you like about it? Or what drew you to that town? I don't have an answer for. So it's really asking questions for which we can't answer it. And it demonstrates that you're curious about what that person wants to talk about. So if we want to teach that, I always do this in my programs. Before I teach it, I show it. So I do live coaching where I demonstrate myself coaching someone using level two curiosity, which is level two listening, where the questions are all about the experience of the person speaking. But once you experience it, you get it because it feels connecting. It feels like, oh my gosh, I want to talk to this person more rather than check that box.
Yeah, I think we've all had those conversations with people. You meet somebody, whether it's a stranger that maybe you meet on a flight, or whether it's a colleague, friend, family member that you look forward to talking to them. You enjoy it. And I think that's the distinction, right? Where they're at that level two, where they're focusing on not necessarily maybe transactional listening. Okay, I asked them about this, I asked them about that, but really kind of digging into and understanding more about their experience with it. Why did they enjoy it? Why did they pick it? And
Yeah.
it's less about, what I want to know. And I just want to really hear about their experience.
Yeah, because literally, some people are going to have that conversation about the vacation to determine if you ever want to go there or not,
Mhm.
or what you would want to do when you get there. What's the best, thing to do first? And there's nothing wrong with level one listening. It serves a purpose. It's just
Mhm.
if we're here on this call, your listeners are listening to this to become more skilled. We want to start to distinguish who is served by that question.
And it's a great way to differentiate yourself. So if I think about going on vacation and coming back, especially coming back to work, where I might have the same conversation about my vacation with six different colleagues, right?
Mhm.
Oh, where'd you go? Would you fly? Did you drive? What did you do? Blah, blah, blah. Versus, as you mentioned, oh gosh, what did you like most about it? Or, what drew you to go out there? To me, and I just know my brain, that conversation is going to resonate. I'm going to remember it, and that person's going to kind of stand out amongst the crowd to me.
Completely. Completely.
So as we think about effective communication and the workplace today, we know listening, big component to being successful and growing in your communication skills, growing in your career. What do you think are some of the other key skills that are out there that really people can focus on that either ties into the listening or really even unrelated to that?
hmm One of my favorites is about the green light. So, how do we know it's a good time to share our thoughts with someone? And we want to get really good at looking at the small cues that someone lets us know there's a green light to share a thought or an opinion. So you might have a colleague that is a friend, you chat with them often, but you still might say, hey, can I tell you about what happened to me last night? Or can I tell you about this conversation I just had? And see what they do. right? Because if they turn their body and they're like, oh my gosh, what? That's a huge green light. If they say, you get a minute, right? We can read those cues and set it up so that the other person is continuously invited to give us feedback about how we're doing in the conversation. Now, I work with a lot of people in high stakes conversations where there are disagreements on the table and things are hot. Once there's a disagreement, people think, well, we're here to talk about our disagreements, so I'm just going to barrel through and pile it on. But I teach people how to say, here's one of my new favorites. Oh my gosh, I wish we aligned on that. That is an invitation for that other person to then say, what don't we align on? Rather than for me to just start off by saying the 2 or 3 or 4 things that we don't align on. So we're testing out the relationship as we share. So I had a treat, and it's makes me look a little nerdy, which I kind of like. But I treated myself to a program at Harvard Law School last year, and it was a negotiations class, and I was there with people from interesting people from governments and literally all over the world, and I felt so out of place, at least at first. But we had one whole day where we were talking about high stakes negotiations. And the speaker, Rob Wilkinson, he's just a brilliant man, was sharing how it should be equal between the facts that we're talking about, the process that we're using, and how we're supporting the relationship. So that even once someone gives us permission to dive into heavy content with them, we're still checking in. How are we doing? Do we need a break? How's this landing? We're still checking in about the pace and the tone of the conversation. And then we're also checking in on the relationship, which is all those cues about how's the level of tension here in the room? And is this what we intended to have happen in this conversation? And all these, what some people might think of as extraneous conversations, but they keep us measuring the level of engagement in the conversation so that we know the weight of the content with which we're engaging. Because if we're engaging beyond the other person's capacity to stay in relationship, or if they're hungry for lunch, the weight of that content is going to go down. And if we keep checking in and we keep our relationship strong and they know we're actively caring about how it's going, the weight of the information that we're sharing is really high. Fascinating.
With the green lights and the checking in, I think it also ties into the timing, right? You just mentioned, right? If you're having a heavy conversation right before lunch or at 5 p.m. on a Friday, the response that you're going to get might be a little bit different than if you're having it at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. So I think thinking through the timing, and as you mentioned, looking for those signals. Such a big part of communication is self-awareness and then also awareness of others. As you mentioned, it makes me think of last night. My daughter came in from practice. She said, "Can I tell you about practice tonight?" And I know what that means. It means she's just going to unload all of the drama and the stuff that happens. So I'm like, put my phone down. I lock in on her.
Oh, so
right, she had the green lights, right? And then now she needs to work on the checking in as she's about 10 minutes into it. But she had the green light, right? She knows, okay, I have dad's attention. I can tell her all about the things that happened at practice tonight. Yeah. And that's why I just love so much about the work that I do, is that it's so transferable between home and work and friends and spouses and kids and colleagues. It really hits every single aspect of our life, and it's a culmination of just lots of little things that you can do. And fortunately, these are all learnable skills. It just takes the effort of, one, learning them, and then two, putting them into practice.
Mm-hmm. I have a funny I have a 100-year-old dad, and he has given us permission to hold up a finger if he's telling a story that we've heard before. If we don't want to hear it again, he's happy to move on to the next story. But it's just fun to really develop these cues in your relationship so that if you are losing interest with your daughter after 10 months, you can say, "Oh, I don't want to miss anything. Let me grab this thing I need to do for dinner and I'll be right back." Or,
Hmm.
"Hey, will you come with me while I run this errand? I want to hear what you have to say, but they close in 15 minutes. I want to be sure we get there before they close." So you can continuously support even the speaker before they have these skills by creating a container that makes it so structured that you can keep the flow going of the conversation, but
Hmm.
not let it crash.
And it ties back into what you talked about earlier with setting boundaries and the yes energy is that,
Mm.
Amy, I really want to hear about this, but right
Yeah,
now we have these, let's go do this together and
exactly.
blah, blah, blah. Right? Not
Exactly.
everything is, at work or at home is a
Mm.
drop what I'm doing and I need to hear about this.
No.
You have to use your gut, right? I know sometimes there's when the kids come to me, it might not be the most major thing, but I can sense that they need my full attention, right? It's not a wait till I'm done cooking dinner. It's not a wait till I send this email. It's okay, you have my attention. But there are other times, a lot of the times at work and at home, where you can use your intuition, use the experience that you've had interacting with these people to know what I want to do this. Here's how I want to do it. Here's what we need to do. Let's go do it. So I think it all kind of ties in together.
One time I was doing a speaking engagement, and I invited people to give me situations that were tense, high conflict situations for them. And then on the fly, I would help them shift what they wanted or needed to say into yes energy. It was so fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
Amy, as you think about your career journey and the success that you've had, you coaching coaches, working with clients, what would you say? Maybe we'll take listening off the table because we've talked about that so much.
Mm.
What would you say would be a key communication skill that's really helped you throughout your career?
Yeah. I'm going to call it self-awareness because, like I said, I grew up faking my communication, faking how I showed up. And once we have those couple of seconds to literally check in and see how we're doing and ask ourselves key questions like, do I want to engage in this conversation? Is this relationship worth getting into a heated argument with? Or am I in a good place to have this conversation? Or is this a need or a want? Once we can ask ourselves just a few questions, it can completely guide our communication. Because we often develop habits where we just automatically launch into a certain way of being when that doesn't even fit the situation or the relationship. So I'm going to say for this conversation, that we really can't even use the listening skills until we have a relationship with our own inner voice that can be truth telling, even just for ourselves.
And I think when you have that relationship with the inner voice, you've done that work, that's where you'll get responses versus reactions. When you
Mm.
have that self awareness to know, I'm not in
Mhm.
the mindset right now for this conversation, I'm not in the environment right now for this. Thanksgiving dinner is not the time for this conversation. Or
Probably not.
once again,
Yeah.
Friday at 5 p.m.
Right.
is not the time for this conversation. So definitely having that awareness of where you are mentally, emotionally, physically, if you are just drained from whatever's been going on. I know there's times when I get out of work at the end of the day and it's been a long day, client meetings, stressful things, dealing with issues. And then I just know by the end of the day, I am just mentally, emotionally spent, and I need time to recharge and to refocus before I can have any type of meaningful conversation, whether it's
Mm.
contentious or stressful or not, just any type of meaningful
Anything.
conversation.
Mhm.
I need a little bit of time and then I'll be good.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And it sounds like you're able to give yourself permission. You're not going to say, well, I'll just try to keep it quick or I'll just power through it. You're really saying, I'm going to save this conversation for Monday or in the morning or by email, or really giving yourself permission to consider options of how you want to engage rather than just taking the other person's lead as though you don't have any say in the matter.
And that all ties in. All the things that we've been talking about today really tie in to help create your own personal brand or style of communication.
Mhm.
So, as you think about your communication style, who has been someone who's you maybe had an impact on that? Maybe you picked up a skill from them, or you just learned from them and started to kind of make it your own. Who's had an impact on your style?
Yeah, so may I choose to?
Sure.
Yeah, because I had such a big impact from my younger self, my 40-year-old self, that was completely mired in people pleasing, where I absolutely could not tell the truth. And I have so much compassion for her now, thinking about my past. We are very close. And I hope that doesn't make anybody think I'm like too woo woo. But the idea is that I can remember her and talk to her and comfort her when she's tempted to show back up and get me to just do the nice thing or the people pleasing thing. So I really appreciate her. But there's another woman. She's actually a psychologist in Massachusetts, and she's involved with a lot of the professional conferences that I attend. And she has, no matter what we're talking about, she always leads with something warm. It's not fake, but it is warm. She always reminds me that we're going to have a good conversation no matter what we have to talk about. And she and I work together in some clinical areas where we're working in intense situations, but I know she will always have my back because my interactions with her always start with something warm. So even if it's a hard conversation, she'll touch my hand, or she'll say, "We're going to get through this." Or she'll say, I know you have good ideas." Just something that feels encouraging, that reminds me that our relationship is strong enough to handle whatever we have to talk about.
And I can feel that coming from you just in the interactions that we've had today, and as we were meeting last week talking about this, just that warmth that comes through, which ties back to authenticity. It's there just in your tone, in your mannerism, the things that you say, the messages that you receive, and you can pretty quickly tell when somebody's trying to fake that warmth. Oh yeah, yeah, it's gonna be okay, right? You have to have all the other components, not just the words that you're trying to say when you want to convey that warmth. You can't kind of just turn it off and turn it on, even if you're not trying to think of the right way to say this. Some people, their tone may not come across as warmth, but all of their other actions do, right? Their words
Sincere.
and actions do, but just the way that they speak may not be considered what you
Yeah.
would typically think of warm. So that's still authentic, but some people
Even,
just try to fake it because they feel the situation warrants it and it might help them out.
yeah, right. What word just came to me was genuine. So even if someone doesn't have a gregarious personality or isn't particularly emotional, to be able to sense genuine interest, I think would have the same effect as a
Mhm.
more effusive warmth.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Amy, as we are wrapping up here, what piece of closing advice would you have for folks listening to this? Whether it's something that maybe they should go do or try out today, or in general, just around the importance of the skills that we talked about today and the impact that they can have on their lives.
Yeah. My advice is always the same: to trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. Try it out. Do a little experiment. Be a little more truthful and trust yourself that what is true for you is going to help you meet your goals, no matter what they are.
Trust yourself. I think that's
Trust
always
yourself.
sound advice. No one knows you better than you do, right? You've been with yourself the whole time, 24/7. So trust yourself. that gut instinct that people talk about is the culmination of years and years and years and thousands of experiences. It's kind of hard to get that advice
Yeah,
elsewhere. So definitely trust
exactly.
yourself. Fantastic advice.
Yeah.
Amy, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed the
Oh, you're
conversation. Hope
welcome.
you have the great rest of your day. And before we wrap,
Yeah.
if people want to get in touch with you and learn about the work that you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that? And I can make sure I include it in the show notes.
Oh, perfect. I'll be including a lead magnet as well. I'd love to share some value that they can keep keep forever. And I have a website that is the Center for Family Resolution.com. And I run my coach training through the Center for Coach Development.com. And I can be found on LinkedIn under Amy Armstrong Coach. And yeah, through the lead magnet that you'll have attached.
Excellent. I will be sure to put links to all of those in the notes. Amy, thank you again. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.
Special thanks again to my guest, Amy Armstrong, for joining us and sharing her expertise on conflict, courage, and communication. As we close, here's a reminder. Communication isn't just about having the right words. It's about knowing yourself, respecting others, and creating space for honest dialogue. Be sure to subscribe to Communicast so you don't miss future episodes with leaders and experts redefining what great communication looks like. And if this episode resonated with you, please leave a rating or review. It helps others discover the show and supports our growing community. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.